Becoming a Kage is something that only a selected few ninjas are ever able to do in the Naruto universe. In this video, we're gonna be taking a look at the characters who became Kages before the age of 30, which is a relatively young age, and becoming a Kage before that is even more impressive. But before we get to the list, please subscribe to this channel and like this video if you enjoy my content. Bear in mind that we actually don't know the ages of many Kages, especially the Kages of older ages. The first Kages are mostly mysteries, the second Kages as well. The first one in our list is Minato Namikaze, who became the 4th Hokage when he was 23 years old. Now, this isn't an absolutely confirmed age for Minato to have become the Hokage, but it's easy to reach that conclusion through some simple math. We know that Minato died at age 24, right when Naruto was born, and obviously he became Hokage before that. He was actually promoted to the level of Hokage right after the end of the Third Great Ninja War. We know that Kakashi became a Jonin at age 13 during the Third Great Ninja War, when Minato was still a Jonin and the leader of their squad. And we also know that Obito was about the same age as Kakashi. After the war, he becomes the 4th Hokage, and before he died, he fought Obito when Obito was 14, which is about a year of difference between the time when Obito got crushed to the time when he fought Obito. Minato was the Hokage for a year, give it or take, which means that if he was 24 when he died, he was around 23 when he became the Hokage. Moving on to the next very young Kage. This one is very surprising actually. Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen became the 3rd Hokage after the 2nd Hokage sacrificed when he fought against the Ginkaku squad so that his squad would be able to flee the battlefield and survive. That happened during the First Great Ninja War. We do not know Hiruzen's exact age, but we can also take some very educated guesses here. First of all, we can see Hiruzen's design. He looks very young. It's not easy to pinpoint a very precise age just by looking at a character's design in the manga, but we can clearly see that Hiruzen is very young here. We can also look right here when Hiruzen was teaching Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade in their bell test. Hiruzen looked older than he was the day he became the 3rd Hokage. We also know that Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade became Genins when they were 6 years old, so this bell test happened when they were 6. And we know that Hiruzen is 19 years older than the Sannin. Hiruzen died when he was 69, and the Sannin were 50 in part 1. So this means that when Hiruzen was teaching the 6-year-old Sannins during the bell test, Hiruzen was 25, give it or take. And he became the Hokage far before that. Now, I cannot say for certain how much younger he was when he became the 3rd Hokage, but to me, he looks substantially younger. Probably 5, maybe even 6 years younger. So we don't know the exact age when Hiruzen became the Hokage, but it could be anywhere from 18 to 23, I would say. Which means that it's very likely that Hiruzen became a Hokage when he was younger than Minato. Moving on to someone even younger now, we have Yagura, the 4th Mizukage. Now, this is another case that we do not know for certain how old he was when he became the Mizukage, but we also have some very good educated guesses. Yagura's appearance is very young in general from the get-go. When Naruto encounters him in the Jinchuriki/Biju realm, he says, "Oh, you've died so young, you couldn't experience life," and Yagura got actually pissed at Naruto because he was saying, "No, I'm older than you." So it's obvious that Yagura is not a child like he looks, but it's also very easy to assume that Yagura is not old. He was probably in his 30s at most by the time of his death, death, which is a relatively young age. And actually, how old Yagura was when he died is a pretty big deal for us to determine how old he was when he became the Mizukage, because we actually know when Yagura died. He died just prior to the tuning exams in part 1. And just bear in mind that this information comes from a filler episode when they mentioned that the Mist Village didn't participate in the tuning exams in part 1 because they were still mourning the death of the 4th Mizukage, but it's the best thing we have. We know for certain that he died somewhere between part 1 and Naruto Shippuden, but this filler episode gives us a better estimation of when that happened. Someone else who died just prior to the tuning exams in part 1 was Zabuza Momochi. Zabuza died at 26 years old. We also know that Zabuza became a genin and slaughtered his entire genin class when he was 9 years old. And when Zabuza did that, Yagura was already in power. And this happened 15 years before Zabuza's death and before Yagura's death as well. Yagura was the Mizukage for at least 15 years before his death. Now, this is the important part. We don't know how old he was when he died. If he was 30 when he died, he could have become the Mizukage when he was 15. If he was 35 when he was 20, so on and so forth. And that is also assuming that Yagura became the Mizukage the same year Zabuza killed his entire class and became a shinobi. If he became the Mizukage before that, he would have been even younger. This is very much up in the air, but it's easy to assume that Yagura was actually very young when he became the 4th Mizukage. And now let's move on to the youngest Kage ever, Gaara. Yes, Gaara became the 5th Kazekage at the age of 15, and this is confirmed by the data books. This is absolutely impressive, especially considering that the entire village hated Gaara, at least up until when Gaara was 12 years old in part 1. After all, Jinchurikis were hated everywhere in every village they were in, and Gaara is a special case because he went berserk several times during his infancy, and he also loved to kill people just for the sake of killing them. So yeah, people really didn't like Gaara. And then he became their leader just 3 years later. He's probably gone through some very difficult and important missions during the time skip if that happened. Because sure, they knew Gaara was very powerful from the get-go, but they couldn't know for certain if Gaara was stable and if he had improved his ways ever since he was that little psychopath. And you know, it's not very good to have a psychopath as your Kage. So I have to assume that he was very much tested during the time skip before he became the Kazekage. But also, to be honest, I don't really see the Sand Village having many more powerful shinobis to be the Kazekage, because let's be real, the Sand Village is not really a powerhouse in the Naruto verse.
We eat sand for breakfast.
I mean, they had Chio, but she was way too old for that job. But anyway, Gaara becomes the Kazekage at 15 years old. Do you think he was promoted to Chunin and Jonin before that happened? Or do you just think Gaara became the Kazekage straight up from Genin, just like Naruto did in canon at least? We actually don't really know how exactly that happened, but if you're interested in seeing something like that, watch this video right here. Subscribe to this channel, and thanks for watching.